Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for the 20th of October. My name is Rachael Parker. My pronouns are her, she, her, and hers. And I am an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Edmonton within the Anglican Church of Canada. And I serve as the rector or priest for Dayspring Ministries, which is a ministry consisting of three parishes: St. Mary's in Edgerton, St. Saviour's in Vermilion, and St. Thomas in Wainwright in the beautiful southeastern corner of our Diocese of Edmonton within the beautiful province of Alberta in Canada. Welcome. I'm glad to see you here today. Today I'd like to talk about a tough question, and I admit I have no answers. I have no pat things. It's one thing about being a priest is honesty is important and integrity, and that means sometimes we have to admit that we just don't know. And the question I want to ponder today, and I really do look forward to your feedback, is what happens when why doesn't have an answer? We have those big questions like why do bad things happen to good people, and what happens, like why do people have to get sick, and why, things like that. But that big question of what happens when there is no answer to the question why has been something I've been pondering for a little while. As some of you know, my husband was diagnosed with congestive heart failure a couple of weeks ago, and we don't know why. We went to the cardiologist yesterday in Edmonton and had a really great meeting with his cardiologist and his nurse practitioner, and really it was very positive. But still the question is, why? Why did this happen? We posed a few questions about, could it be this? Could it be that? And they said, well, it could be, maybe. We don't know. We haven't had the diagnostic ability to determine for sure why, but they were very kind and very patient. But at the same time, they were very focused on what happens next. I'm very focused on the why. I want to know what happened. My husband's a bit more patient than I am that way. But that big question of why would something happen? My husband just closed the door for me. The dog has been making a lot of noise. The question of why do things happen to people? Why do our friends stop liking us? Why does somebody get cancer when they've never smoked a day in their life, and somebody who has, been a 2-pack-a-day person lives to a great ripe old age and never gets cancer? Those kind of questions. Why do marriages break up? Why do tsunamis hit? Why do we have to deal with droughts? All of these things. Lots and lots of times we can struggle to find what the answer to the question why is. But at the end of the day, is that really the most important thing we should be putting ourselves into, our energy into? Yes, absolutely. Why does cancer happen? If we didn't ask the question why does cancer happen? Why does someone get congestive heart failure? Why do we have drought? Things like this. We wouldn't have research. We wouldn't have, billions of dollars every year being put into medical research or climate change research, or discovering things that do indeed make life better, help us to make decisions, help us to change the way we do things in the world. So asking the question why it's essential, it's important. But there does come a time in our lives when we have to make the decision: do I focus on the why, especially when there is seemingly no answer, or do we focus on the what happens next? And that can be a difficult thing to do. I mean, we had an incredible conversation with the nurse, and she gave us the news that somebody with congestive heart failure, if they didn't take any of the drugs, they would probably only live 1 or 2 years, because of the degeneration of their heart and the difficultness of the body. But the good news is that because somebody asked the question why and did the research, we have drugs, we have medications, we have lifestyle changes that we know can happen to help someone who has congestive heart failure live a good, long, productive life. The same thing with cancer or diabetes or other diseases in our worlds. The things that we think about that are not physical ailments, but are ailments for society. Things like homelessness and lack of education and lack of jobs and things like that. we need people to, as I said, continue to ask the question why, and then figure out how to make sure that the question why doesn't have to be answered in the future. But we also have to deal with the reality that comes out of the situation that caused the question why. And that, I think, is the biggest learning here. My husband may never know what has happened. We may never know what happened to him. But what we do know is there are things that can be done. He can take care of his body. He can eat properly, which he does. He's an awesome cook. I'm diabetic, and he's been cooking for me for years, and he does an excellent job. So we know that his eating habits weren't the why. We already know that. But there's things he can do to mitigate what's happening to his body. There are things he could do, like take his medication, get his regular exercise, and all those things that can help us to move forward. So the focus needs to not be on the why, but our focus needs to be on the how. How do we live the best life we can live, considering the circumstances we find ourselves in? And I think that's a question that we all need to ask. I can't remember a time in my life when I couldn't look back and say, yeah, there was a why question in there. I have not had any season in my life when everything has been just perfect. There's always been, even if it's just a little hiccup, there's always a little hiccup. And there's always been times when I could look back and say, why? Like, why did that have to happen? What could I have done differently? What could someone else have done differently for that to not happen? Well, that makes me focus rear view mirror. I read somewhere recently, probably on Facebook, about the fact that your windshield and your rear view mirror are disproportionately in size. So proportionate to what you should be looking at. The windshield is massive because that's what we're called to look on. Your rear view mirror is smaller because we need to look less in that mirror. If we put all our focus on looking behind us, looking in that rearview mirror, God knows what we'll run into because of what we've missed looking out the windshield when we weren't looking. We do need to keep an eye on what's happened in the past and ask those questions, but we really need to focus on the future. And that can be really hard, especially if you're in the middle of that beginning part of why. When you're angry and frustrated and scared and sad and all those emotions are happening, especially, or if you're looking at a time of grieving. And grieving does not have to be just simply when someone has died. We grieve when we lose something, like we've lost a job or a relationship. That's a time of grieving. And there's all those steps of grieving that I never, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had these stages of grieving, which I think are fantastic, but I can never remember what they are. And just in case you do know what they are, it's not stages like you go through one and then the other and then the other, and then bang, you graduate from grieving. They're stages that we bounce back and forth around in, like bargaining. I've been doing a lot of bargaining lately. And then acceptance. And then I get through acceptance and it's like I'm back to bargaining. And then I'm angry. And then I'm sad. And then I'm, accepting again and back and forth. But we can't live in that. At some point, yes, we need to take some time to honor the event that caused the why question. We need some time to process why and ask the question and be angry or frustrated or bargain. And then I get to that point where we say, you know what? I can't do much now. Maybe someday I can find out why. But right now, I can't do much about changing what I don't know. What I can do is change how I deal with what I do know. What is the situation I'm in? And what do I know of myself to be able to handle it? Let me just use an example. I remember when my house was broken into, for instance, long before I met Rob. I was living in Stratford on my own. My house was broken into, all of the whys. The police officers were so kind and gentle with me. And why would someone do this? And, ridiculousness of like, if they just wanted it, I would have given it to them, which was true because I'm sort of a bit of a Pollyanna. But, I couldn't understand why someone would be so violent. What they did was a violent act to my house, which, I wasn't in it, but felt like a violent act to me. And I did a whole lot of that. The first couple of days, the first couple of weeks after, a whole lot of why. But then I started the process of realizing I can't change the fact that it happened. And I'm probably never, and I never did, find out who did it so that I could ask them, why would you do this to me? So the why question was never going to be answered. But what I could do was focus on what happens now. How can I deal with this? What information do I have that can help me to move forward? I had such information as I now have new doors and new locks, so I can feel safer. It changed the way I thought about things. You know, my TV and my VCR were stolen, and I went for months without replacing things because I realized they weren't the priority in my life. I didn't need them. And it changed who I am, I think, for the better. It changed the way I approach things. And so moving from the need for the answer to why to the need to respond to how my life has become, to embrace the opportunities that come because life has changed. I don't think there is a great answer to the question, why do bad things happen to good people, or why do good things happen to bad people? I think the answer why, all too often, for all of us, Christians or not, the answer to the question why is never given. But the challenge really is then in how do we live in that not knowing? And I think that's where we have the opportunity to really shine, to be able to step up and out of the mire of being pulled down by the why, and be able to step out of that and say, now what? Now who am I? Who have I become? How am I called to respond? How can I be a better person? How can I make this a better world? Maybe that means I contribute to figuring out research and figuring out, contributing financially for that new medications can be found, or answers to why could be found. It may not mean that I ever have a why for my particular predicament, but maybe I would be able to help someone else's. Or maybe my experience would help someone else as they're walking through their why me time. I think my big takeaway is a couple of things. It's okay to say why me. It's okay to want to know, desperately want to know why something has happened. But it's also okay to set that question and that desperate desire aside to say, I need to move forward. How can I grow and become a better person? How can I make this a better world because of this situation? How can I contribute to making this situation a better situation, considering I don't have all the answers? I invite you to think about that, to recognize that, yeah, we all have those awful, awkward why things, but we are also given the opportunity to move beyond the why, or the why me, or why did this happen, to say, okay, I can't do anything about the past. That rear view mirror is this big, but my future out there in front of me, my windshield is this big. How can I move forward? How can I embrace the possibilities that this situation has provided me? Let me know what your possibilities are. Let me know what your why questions are too, because sometimes just getting it off your chest means the most right there. But don't beat yourself up if you can't answer the question why. And don't be ashamed of yourself if you figured out a way to walk beyond the why. That's healthy. I hope you have a great day. I hope you don't have any more why situations today. I hope it's just a peaceful day. But I do pray that you will have a wonderful day. And I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael. God bless you.